Minecraft, the Junior Novelization. Freak. The front door to the mansion opened slowly. Disguised as singing telegram delivery guys in little hats and uniforms, Steve and Garrett danced, stepping back and forth and side to side. Hey, hey, hey! Garrett said in a super cheerful voice. Did someone order a saxophone birthday party? Holding up a saxophone, Steve chimed in. Oh yeah, we heard there's a birthday boy in the house. Which one of you lucky guys is Reggie? If one of you is Reggie, just stand there glaring at us menacingly. On the other side of the door, a crowd of vindicators stared from under heavy, dark brows, brandishing their iron axes. Their skin was gray, and their faces were fierce. Garrett and Steve launched into a lively birthday rap, providing just the diversion Henry needed to craft a stairway, climb up to the second floor, and slip through a window unnoticed. At the end of a hallway, he spotted stairs leading up to the third floor. But evokers, the dark wizard Steve had warned them about, roamed the hallway, entering and exiting rooms. With gray skin and heavy brows, they looked similar to the Vindicators, but wore long black robes trimmed in gold. Gotta time it right, Henry muttered to himself. The evokers all stepped into rooms, leaving the hallway clear. Henry ran, reaching the stairway before the evokers returned. Back at the front door, Garrett and Steve were running out of improvised lyrics to their birthday rap.
Friendship is the wish you make when you're blowing out the candles on your birthday cake.
Garrett turned to Steve and said in a quick aside, I almost want them to kill us so we don't have to do this anymore. We gotta switch it up fast, Steve agreed. They don't look happy. The Vindicators were starting to lift their axes. Steve launched into a new tune on his saxophone called Crazy Train. Then he pulled the sax out of his mouth and announced, All aboard! Let's get those tickets out because we're going on a train ride. He started singing Crazy Train with all the energy he could muster, hoping to hold the Vindicators' attention long enough for Henry to complete his mission. Garrett joined in, singing and dancing as Steve clapped his hands and wailed on the saxophone. Performing together, they weren't bad. But the Vindicators had heard enough. They were not big music fans. They moved towards Steve and Garrett. Up on the third floor, Henry crept toward the loot chamber. He heard a floorboard creak behind him. He looked back to see an evoker gesturing with its hands, casting a spell. A swarm of Vexes, evil beings with iron swords, flew through the air toward Henry. Of course they would have swords, he said to himself as he turned to run. He bolted for the door to the loot chamber with the Vexes streaking after him. Just in time, he dove through and slammed the door behind him. Slam! When he turned around and saw what was in the loot chamber, Henry said, You're kidding me. Chests, lots and lots of chests, stacked high and deep, an overwhelming number of chests to search through. Downstairs, the Vindicators had forced Garrett and Steve into a fighting arena. Steve was tied to a corner of the ring, but Garrett was free to face his opponent, a chicken. The Vindicators surrounded the arena, cheering and yelling. Steve, Garrett asked, utterly baffled. What's going on? Do they want me to fight this chicken? Yeah, I think this is some sort of Vindicator fight club, Steve answered. I've heard about these, but I've never seen one. He looked around the large chamber. This is a pretty impressive build. Nice lighting, solid boxing ring. Garrett shrugged and raised his fists. I guess it's him or me, then. A box lowered from the ceiling. The bottom swung open, and a baby zombie fell out, landing on the chicken like a soldier mounted on a horse. What the? Garrett said, even more baffled. It's like a chicken jockey, Steve said. Sss. Hissing, the baby zombie charged at Garrett, knocking him into a corner of the ring. It chomped its large teeth, trying to bite him. Clack, 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 clack. Hey, hey, hey! Garrett protested. No biting! It's a fight to the death, Steve shouted. There are no rules. As Garrett struggled to hold the chomping baby zombie at arm's length, the chicken bit his leg. Stop announcing and help me, Garrett yelled at Steve. Swinging through the ropes, the baby pummeled Garrett ferociously. In the loot chamber, Henry opened chest after chest, searching for the earth crystal. Come on, he muttered anxiously. Opening yet another chest, he found a diamond axe glowing purple. Then he spotted a box on the other side of the room emitting a blue light from its interior. As he hurried toward it, a tall, thin figure with glowing eyes slipped across the room behind Henry. Enderman. Downstairs, the baby zombie was smashing Garrett's head. He broke free and said to Steve, "Please don't ever tell anyone about this." Then he kicked the baby in the face. Thunk! The baby flew through the air, landed on its butt, and started to cry pathetically. "Oh, look, I'm sorry," Garrett said, feeling bad. "Don't cry." He approached the little zombie to comfort it, but it stopped crying, clamped onto Garrett's hand with its teeth, and flipped him onto his back. Wham! The Vindicators cheered wildly. "Keep doing what you're doing," Steve urged Garrett. "You got this, big man." As he cheered Garrett on, Steve concentrated on wriggling out of the ropes that bound him. Upstairs, Henry opened the chest with the blue light and found the earth crystal. He picked it up, stared at the awesome object, and stowed it in his satchel. Looking up, he noticed a dark shape reflected in a window. When he whipped around, the shadowy figure was gone, leaving only purple particles drifting in the air. Poof! The teleporting Enderman reappeared right in front of Henry. It was tall and black, with a cubic head, 2 long arms, 2 long legs, and 2 glowing purple eyes that Henry couldn't help but stare into. Slowly, the Enderman opened its rectangular mouth and screamed. Henry grabbed his temples. His eyes glowed purple. Disturbing images filled his brain. Garrett looked through Henry's sketchbook, laughing at his drawings. "This stuff is trash, kid," he mocked. "You don't belong here, Henry," Steve said, his face looking twisted and mean. "You don't belong anywhere." "This is all your fault," Natalie said, looking just as cruel as Steve had. "Now we'll never see each other again." In his childhood home, Henry's mother spoke to him accusingly. "Natalie is in danger. You put all your friends and this entire world in danger. Why?" She held up Henry's idea sketchbook. "Because you thought you were special, that the world cared what was in your little mind." She tossed the sketchbook into the fireplace where the logs were blazing. "Grow up, Henry," she said. Henry snapped out of the Enderman's nightmare. His eyes stopped glowing purple. He shook his head, trying to get his bearings. His visions had seemed so real. He saw the Enderman still standing right in front of him, its eyes glowing purple. Ducking low, Henry swung his enchanted diamond axe at the Enderman's legs, knees, torso, and finally, as it bent over its square head, poof! An ender pearl fell. Henry scooped it up, then smashed his axe into the floor. Crash! He dropped through to the story below. Meanwhile, in the fighting arena, the baby zombie had climbed onto the post at the corner of the boxing ring. It was prepared to leap on Garrett and finish him off. The crowd of Vindicators was going wild. "No!" Garrett pleaded, holding up his hand. "No!" As the baby launched itself off the post, Garrett braced himself. But out of nowhere, Steve appeared, kicking the zombie in midair and sending it flying. The Vindicators were stunned. Steve helped Garrett to his feet. "You saved me," Garrett said in disbelief. "That's what friends do, Garrett," Steve said. They grabbed the backs of each other's necks and pressed their foreheads together. "Anytime, any place, anywhere," Garrett vowed. "I'll always be there for you." The chicken jumped up and tried to attack Steve, but he just grabbed it by the neck and tossed it out the window. The baby zombie returned, hungry for vengeance. "Let's do this," Steve told Garrett. Together, they put an awesome tag team wrestling move on the baby zombie, taking him out of action. Celebrating their win, they did an elaborate handshake that looked like a dance, bumping fists, touching elbows, waggling fingers, and swinging their hips. Garrett jumped onto the ropes and bellowed, "This is not pro wrestling! You people are sick!" Where's Henry? Steve asked. Smash! Using his diamond axe, Henry broke through the ceiling and dropped into the ring. He stood up and looked around, a little confused. Hank! Garrett cried happily. Did you get the earth crystal? Steve asked eagerly. Henry held up his satchel. Yep, got it. Attaboy, Henry, Steve said, clapping him on the back. Now let's find Natalie and Dawn. The three of them ran out, leaving the stunned crowd of vindicators to ponder what had just happened. Henry, Steve, and Garrett burst out the front door of the Woodland Mansion and ran across a huge bridge spanning the deep canyon surrounding the building. But as they crossed the bridge, something rose out of the mist. Ghasts! They were carrying gondolas piloted by piglins, just like the ones Steve, Garrett, and Henry had escaped from in the chasm outside Midport Village. The ghasts rose on both sides of the bridge surrounding them. Below, on the most elaborate ghast gondola, rode the Great Hog, who had somehow survived the creeper explosion in the mines, and Malgosia. Oh no, Steve moaned, it's her. The piglin sorceress raised her staff and sucked the orb right out of Henry's satchel. To the guy's horror, the orb flew straight to the top of her staff. Malgosia cackled with evil triumph. No, Henry cried. Kill them, Malgosia commanded. We have work to do. She flew off, leaving her minions to do her nasty bidding. Dozens of multicolored piglins carrying mushroom bombs leapt onto the bridge. Seeker piglins! Steve gasped. They're going to blow this bridge sky high! Lowering his voice, Garrett nodded toward a ghast and asked Steve, Could you get on one of those demon marshmallow things? Steve looked. The ghast's gondola was about 12 feet below the bridge. The basket was small, but it looked as though it could hold 2 human passengers. He nodded. Garrett grabbed Henry by his shirt and the seat of his pants and tossed him into the empty gondola dangling below the ghast. Steve took off running and leapt into the gondola next to Henry. Slime block! He called as he threw one down for Garrett to jump onto. Henry and Steve looked up at Garrett, surrounded by seeker piglins closing in on him with their mushroom bombs. Go, Hank! Garrett called down to them. Save Dawn and your sister and get home. Garrett, come on! Steve urged. Jump! No, get out of here, Garrett said. Tell my story in song. Heavy metal, please. Real instruments. You don't have to do this, Henry pleaded. I forgive you. Remember what you said. Dead dudes can't win Gamer of the Year. Garrett smiled, the most genuine smile Henry'd ever seen him make. I already have a trophy, kid. The seeker piglins swarmed over Garrett as he fought them. The ghast flew off. No! Henry screamed. Boom! The seeker piglin's mushroom bombs exploded. The bridge was gone. Pork chops rained down onto the chasm. Flying away under the ghast, Henry and Steve mourned their lost friend, aching with sadness. But after a few moments, Steve spoke. Henry, I know we're both hurting, but there's something important I need to tell you. I don't know how to land these things. Wham! They crashed into a tree, and everything went black. Henry opened his eyes and saw Natalie. She smiled, then hugged him tight. Dawn was there too. She reunited Steve and Dennis. The 2 best friends were slobbering all over each other. Dennis! Steve cried joyfully. Man, did I miss you. Dennis is a dog? Henry asked. Dennis growled. Urgh. Wolf dude, Steve corrected him. He turned back to his best buddy. I was so scared I'd lost you, boy. What happened? Where were you? Dennis went into a long explanation of barks, howls, growls, and whimpers. Smiling warmly, Steve said, You saved the whole overworld, Dennis. You were so brave. But now we gotta do it again. You up for it? Oh! Dennis howled in agreement. Now I understand why you kept yourself so filthy and smelly, Dawn said. So Dennis would find you one day. Exactly, Steve confirmed proudly. I was so afraid you were dead, Henry told his big sister. I'm right here, she assured him. I'm not going anywhere. Henry sighed. I'm sorry, Nat. Everything's my fault. Garrett's gone, and we're stuck here. I'm so sorry, Natalie said, pulling him for another big hug. Garrett died a true hero, Steve said solemnly. Honestly, I'm a little jealous. Henry, look at me, Natalie said gently. Her brother raised his eyes to hers, looking miserable. Don't blame yourself, and don't start doubting yourself, not now. You were right about this place. Nodding, Henry felt a little better. He looked around. They seemed to be inside some kind of structure. Hold on, where are we? I kind of made a little safe house thing, Natalie explained humbly. Wanting to get a better look at the building, Henry ran outside. Natalie watched him from the open doorway. He saw that she had crafted a colorful tower shaped like mushroom, showing off her creativity and imagination. Nat, Henry said, impressed, you did it. Yeah, Natalie said, beaming. It's not as good as yours, of course, but I'm proud of it. Henry beamed back at her. He could tell from her smile that Natalie was finally experiencing the good feeling he'd often felt when he'd created something new. But suddenly, he experienced a flashback of his nightmarish encounter with the Enderman. His eyes went purple. He clutched his temples in pain. Henry, Natalie asked. Hurrying to his side, she helped him back into her mushroom tower. Once inside, Henry tried to explain what he was going through. At the mansion, this creature gave me a horrible vision. It was Mom telling me to give up. Steve told him, That wasn't your mom, Henry. The Endermen are liars, and they know how to use our greatest fears against us. You know what Mom wanted for you, Natalie said. Use your gifts. Maybe make the world a little better. Henry smiled. Boom! A deafening sound pulled them all to the window to see what was going on outside. They saw a beam of purple light shooting straight up into the blocky sun. It's begun, Steve said grimly. The great darkening! Malgosha's gathering all her forces. The overworld won't stand a chance. Unless we fight for it, Henry said. Natalie nodded. Gonna be a lot of killer pigs down there, Don mused. I think I can get us some reinforcements. Yes, Steve exclaimed. Then he looked doubtful. From where? Leave that to me, Don told him. I have an idea for a kind of crazy build, Henry said. Nah, I can help with that, she said. Henry smiled. He liked the idea of crafting something with his sister. He turned to Steve. I'll need some serious resources. Steve tossed him a pickaxe. All right, listen up. I'm going to need someone to mine, and I'm going to need someone to craft. Let's Minecraft! Over the meadow near the portal, back to Earth, the sky darkened. Sheep looked up, wondering what was going on. The same gloom was spreading across the sky over Midport Village. Villagers stopped what they were doing and stared. At the edge of the forest, the mobs of skeleton and zombies that normally came out only at night began to emerge in the unnatural darkness. And at the massive portal between the nether and the overworld, netherrack blocks spread out, turning the grass and stone dull red. From the blocks, netherwort fungus sprouted. Heavily armed piglin troops marched out of the portal, urged on by their sorceress queen. Today we take the overworld as ours, Malgosha declared. Attack the village! Burn their homes and symmetrical farms. All they've created, we destroy! All the piglins cheered with menacing oinks, grunts, and squeals. Malgosha turned to a brigade of piglins carrying lit torches and pointed her staff at Midport Village in the distance. Charge! On a nearby rise, Henry crafted stacks of iron blocks. Natalie slapped pumpkin heads on them, and they came to life as iron golems. Henry pulled purple boots of swiftness onto the final golem, turning it into a super golem with the power of great speed. Fools! Malgosha laughed when she saw what the siblings were doing. Iron golems will not attack unless provoked. Plink! An arrow shot by one of the piglins hit an iron golem and harmlessly bounced off. The iron golems all turned their heads toward the rider. Małgosia sighed. You gotta be kidding me. The iron golems charged down the hill and into the hoglin cavalry, swinging their long arms to knock the riders off their hogs. The super golem loomed over the piglin that had shot the arrow and whacked him into the sky. Dozens of skeletons, zombies, and spider jockeys rushed into the fight, swarming the iron golems, who smashed and swatted them. You sure those boots work? Natalie asked Henry as he activated them. Whoosh! The super golem blasted off at an incredible speed. Yeah, I think they work, Henry answered, following the super golem as it cleared a path to the portal. The brother and sister fought the piglins side by side, Natalie with her sword and Henry with his new tot launcher. Meanwhile, Steve crept up behind Małgosia, placed blocks on the ground, jumped on the blocks, and launched himself into the air. Sneak attack! Małgosia whipped around to face Steve and saw that he was wearing diamond armor and carrying a diamond sword. With his diamond sword drawn, Steve flew through the air, but he belly flopped onto the ground short of Małgosia, who immediately attacked him with her staff. Leaping to his feet, Steve flung eggs at her. Egg attack! When the eggs hit the sorceress, they turned into baby chicks. Steve built a small block wall and jumped at it, crying, Parkour attack! Using his best parkour moves, he twisted and spun off the wall, crashing into Małgosia. They clashed, battling each other with every tactic they could think of. As the fighting raged on, Henry and Natalie approached the tall portal to the Nether, which rose several stories above them. Atop the portal sat the Orb of Dominance, projecting its purple beacon of darkness into the sky. A new wave of piglins was fast approaching. Smiling, Henry pulled out the ender pearl he'd obtained on the 3rd floor of the woodland mansion by defeating the Enderman. He loaded it into a launcher. Do it, Henry, Natalie said. I got this. Raising her sword, she turned to face the horde of running piglins. Henry carefully aimed for the top of the portal. Vroom! The ender pearl shot out of the barrel and flew through the air to the top of the portal. Whoosh! Teleported by the ender pearl, Henry appeared atop the portal next to the Orb of Dominance in its beacon of darkness. Natalie braced herself for the oncoming piglins, but then she heard a familiar voice. Hey, you stupid pigs! Dawn shouted. Over here! Dawn and Dennis emerged from a stand of trees. She turned to the eager wolf. Sick 'em, Dennis! He tore off. Dawn whistled, and dozens of wolves sprinted out of the trees to join Dennis. These were the reinforcements Dawn had mentioned. She successfully recruited them using her strong connection to all animals. The flood of wolves charged into the piglins to protect Natalie. Seeing the super golem clearing a way to the portal, the great hog charged into battle, firing his blaster at the iron golems. Swark! Crackling bolts of energy proved much more effective against the iron golems than the hog rider's arrows. But the super golem zipped over to the great hog and knocked him around like a soccer ball. Wham! Whack! Spotting Henry up on the portal, the great hog managed to blast a fireball his way. Swoop! Just as he was about to grab the orb, Henry was knocked off. Henry! Natalie screamed. She and Dawn watched in helpless horror. Steve, still fighting Małgosia, looked up and saw Henry fall. Screaming, Henry plummeted 10 stories through the air. Ah! Out of nowhere, Garrett swooped down, piloting a gas from the gondola hanging underneath it. He caught Henry before he hit the ground and hauled him in. I got you, partner, Garrett crowed. Garrett! Henry exclaimed overjoyed. You're alive! Garrett winked. Molten hot garbage chip number 1. Winners never die. Plus, I remembered that sweet water bucket trick you used. Breaks your fall every time. Steering the Ghast into a U-turn over Natalie and Dawn, Garrett flew back toward the portal. Dawn and Natalie were thrilled to see that Garrett had somehow survived his fall off the Woodland Mansion bridge. But more skeletons and zombies were emerging from the woods. Something had to be done to stop the oncoming darkness. In the gondola, Garrett shouted, "Let it rip, Hank!" Henry poked the Ghast with a spear. The Ghast launched a flurry of fireballs at the portal. Boom! The portal tower crumbled, and the orb of dominance tumbled to the ground, ending the great darkening. Night turned to day, and the creatures of the night burst into flame. "No!" Malgosia cried. The great hog picked up the orb of dominance, laughing at Natalie and Dawn. But before he could return it to Malgosia, the great hog was slammed by the super golem zooming in with his boots of swiftness. The orb flew right into Natalie's hand. "Yep," Natalie said, "those boots definitely work." As Garrett landed the Ghast, Natalie and Dawn ran to hug him and Henry. "Garrett," Natalie said, "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad you're alive." Starting to zombify, Malgosia let out a terrible wail. The remaining piglins fled for the nether portal as it closed forever. Steve held his diamond blade to Malgosia's throat. "You failed, witch," he told her. "The overworld lives on." "You too have fallen for the great lie," she managed to growl. "You'll never be happy. Deep down you know that to dream, to hope, to create is to suffer. It's what led you to my clutches in the first place." "You're right," Steve said. "It is harder to create things than destroy them. That's why cowards tend to choose the path of destruction. It's easier." He saw that the sunlight had nearly zombified the sorceress completely. "Later, gauche. Every minute of knowing you has been truly awful." "One last thing," Malgosia groaned. "Come closer, come closer." Steve wrinkled his brow, thinking, "Do you have another little knife that you're going to stab me with?" "No, no, no," Malgosia wheezed. "I'm too weak. Just come closer." Steve drew closer. Malgosia pulled out another little knife and tried to stab him, but she was too weak. He took the knife away. "Come on," Steve said, annoyed. "Worth a shot," Malgosia croaked. "But I will say this one final thing. Simply lean down close. It's a secret." "No way," Steve said, shaking his head. "Not gonna happen." "No, it's about you," she whispered. "Trust me. Come on down." Steve leaned down, with a dagger hidden in her other hand. Malgosia tried to stab him. He easily slapped the knife away. "You truly are the worst," Steve told her. "Goodbye." Okay, Malgosia gasped. "This is it. Come back. I have no more knives. Where would I even keep one?" Steve walked away. Malgosia, almost totally a zombie, pulled a knife from a sheath strapped to her ankle and threw it at him. But she was so weak, the blade only traveled 2 feet and clattered to the ground. With that, Malgosia breathed her last foul, stinky breath, to be mourned by no one. Henry, Natalie, Dawn, and Garrett stood outside the portal leading back to Earth. Steve held the combined orb and Earth crystal box, which would open the portal. Midport villagers gathered to watch the visitors who had saved their world depart. The map seller stepped forward, bowed, and handed Natalie a rolled-up map. "A little late, but thank you," she said, taking the map. "The real world," Steve sighed. "Are you sure you want to go back there, Henry? It won't feel like this." He gestured at the beautiful land around them, the overworld. "In the real world, you've got judgments, constraints, obstacles." "I know," Henry said, shrugging. "I'm going to go make stuff anyway." Grinning widely, Steve said, "I like that. You're a brave kid." Prouder than ever of her little brother, Natalie mussed his hair. Steve knelt by Dennis, who spoke to him in soft barks and yips. "Of course I love you," Steve answered. "That's just why I think this is a good idea. I just got out of piggy prison, so I'm going to be knocking around for a bit. I'll look for some part-time work, something I can do with my hands." He nodded toward Dawn. "You deserve a home, Dennis. A lawn. and I know she can give you as much love as me." Dennis licked Steve's face lovingly. Dawn stepped closer to the pair of pals. "Steve, are you sure about this?" "I am," Steve said. "He changed my life. It's time for him to change yours. Your bond with Dennis is strong. When he looks at you, it's almost like he's spraying little hearts." Steve and Dawn hugged. "Thank you, Steve," she said. "Truly." As Dawn and Dennis stepped through the portal, Steve sang a song to Dennis about how he was the wolf of Steve's dreams. But now it was time to change Dawn's life. "Goodbye, Garrett," Steve said. "You are truly a bodacious warrior and a good friend." "Goodbye, Steve. I wish you'd come home with us," Garrett said, clasping his hand. "Hank's cool, but I don't really have any friends my age. We'd make a great team. Vaya con Dios. That means goodbye, brother." "No, it doesn't," Natalie pointed out. "It sure does," Garrett insisted. Garrett stepped through the portal. Henry watched him go. Then he approached the portal, stopped, and took a deep breath. He looked back at Natalie and realized she was hesitating. "Ready?" he asked her. She took one final look at the gleaming expanse of the overworld. The sun danced off its mountains and glens. Its colors seemed more vibrant than ever. "Yeah," she said, "I'm gonna miss this place." Natalie put her arm around Henry's shoulder, and they stepped through the portal together. Steve stood there a moment, staring at the portal. Then he said, "Oh, heck with it. I'm coming too," and jumped through. Back home in Chugless, Idaho, all 5 adventurers found new success, inspired by their experiences in the overworld. With Dennis as her main attraction, Dawn had all the petting zoo customers she could handle. She was able to let all her other side businesses go and concentrate on being a full-time zookeeper. Garrett's Game Over World became the most popular store in town. Showing a new generation the power of games to bring players together gave him great joy. He especially loved sharing the video game he designed with Henry. It was a new game that could be played on a classic arcade cabinet. Natalie painted an awesome scene on the side of the cabinet, filled with images from the overworld. Players loved it. Steve often performed at the store, singing for enthusiastic fans. More than once, dance parties broke out. Natalie finally finished unpacking boxes and putting the house in order the way she and Henry liked it. The last box she opened was labeled Nat's Stuff. Digging down to the bottom, she found a blank sketchbook, just like Henry's. On the back page, her mom had written, "To Natalie, dream away. Love, Mom." Smiling, Natalie reached for a paintbrush and started to draw. She didn't even care whether her painting was any good or not. She just wanted to create something new, something no one had ever seen before. Henry had inspired her. Okay, friends, hopefully you really enjoyed this book. If you did, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.